Why renting forever is the most powerful asset strategy you can choose. Imagine two women, both are 28 years old. Both graduated from the same university. Both earn exactly $95,000 a year. Both dream about one thing: financial freedom. One spends the next 6 months searching for the perfect house. She proudly buys a 3-bedroom home. She posts the keys on Instagram. Her family congratulates her. Friends tell her she's finally building wealth. The other woman makes a decision almost everyone questions. She renews the lease on her apartment. Again. Her relatives shake their heads. Friends tell her she's throwing money away. Even strangers say the same thing. You know, renting is just paying someone else's mortgage, right? She smiles, but says nothing. Fast forward 20 years. One woman still wakes up every month thinking about mortgage payments, maintenance bills, property taxes, insurance, repairs, and rising expenses. The other quietly walks into her office, hands in her resignation letter, and retires before turning 50. Same income, same city, same starting point. Completely different ending. How? Because one bought a house. The other bought something far more valuable: freedom. Today, I'm going to show you why one of the most repeated pieces of financial advice in history may actually be costing millions of people the chance to become financially independent. And once you understand the hidden math, you'll never look at renting or buying the same way again. Almost everyone grows up hearing the same sentence: renting is throwing money away. It's repeated by parents, friends, coworkers, real estate agents, television shows, even complete strangers. After hearing it enough times, it starts to sound like a financial law. But here's something very few people stop to ask: if buying a house automatically creates wealth, why are so many homeowners still living paycheck to paycheck? Why do some people own beautiful homes, yet have almost nothing invested? And why do some lifelong renters quietly retire years earlier than people who proudly own multiple properties? The answer isn't that renting is always better, and it isn't that buying is always wrong. The real answer is much more interesting. Because the smartest investors don't ask, should I rent or buy? They ask, where will each dollar work the hardest? That single question changes everything. This video isn't about convincing you never to own a home. It's about helping you understand something most people never calculate: the true cost of ownership, the hidden value of flexibility, and why wealth is often built by the assets you own, not necessarily the house you live in. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly when renting makes financial sense, when buying makes financial sense, and how to avoid making one of the biggest financial mistakes high-income professionals make every single day. 1. The dream nobody questions. Let's start with a simple question. Why do so many intelligent people believe buying a house is always the smartest financial move? The answer has very little to do with math, and almost everything to do with emotion. Owning a home represents stability, success, security. For many families, buying a home isn't just a financial decision, it's a milestone. Proof that you've made it. Banks encourage it. Advertisements celebrate it. Movies portray it as the happy ending. Everywhere you look, home ownership is treated like the final step into adulthood. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. A house is two things at the same time. It's a place to live, and it's a financial asset. Those are not the same job. The problem begins when people confuse the two, because the home you live in might make you feel wealthy, while quietly preventing you from becoming wealthy. And that's where the hidden story begins. 2. The house has two price tags. Let's play a game. Imagine someone tells you they just bought a beautiful home for $500,000. What's the first thing you think? Probably, they bought a $500,000 house. But that's almost never true. They bought a $500,000 entry ticket. Because buying the house is only the beginning. Think about your phone. When you buy it, you don't stop paying. You pay for the data plan, insurance, cases, repairs, apps. The phone has an ecosystem of costs. A house works exactly the same way. Except the numbers are much bigger. Property taxes, homeowners, insurance, maintenance, repairs, HOA fees, lawn care, appliances, roof replacement, water heaters, air conditioning, plumbing, painting, every single year. the house quietly asks for more money. Financial planners have a simple rule: expect to spend about 1% to 3% of your home's value every year on maintenance and repairs alone. For a $500,000 home, that's $5,000 to $15,000 every year, even if nothing goes terribly wrong. Now imagine replacing a roof, a furnace, or fixing a major plumbing leak. Suddenly, the house that was supposed to create financial security becomes the reason your emergency fund disappears. This doesn't mean buying is bad. It means buying is rarely as simple as people think. The purchase price is only the first number. The real cost keeps showing up year after year. 3. The money you never see. Now let's talk about something even more expensive. A cost that never appears on your mortgage statement. Opportunity cost. This is the money your money could have earned somewhere else. Let's go back to our two women. The homeowner makes a $100,000 down payment. The renter invests that same $100,000 into a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds instead. Neither woman touches the money. Fast forward 20 years. If those investments earned an average long-term annual return of around 8%, that original $100,000 could grow to well over $450,000 through compounding. Meanwhile, the homeowner has been building equity. That's valuable. But much of her monthly housing cost also went toward mortgage interest, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, expenses that don't directly build wealth. Neither woman made a wrong decision, but they played two completely different financial games. One invested heavily in a home, the other invested heavily in productive assets. The important question isn't which one owns more. The real question is, which dollars produce the greatest long-term return? That's the question wealthy investors ask every day, because they know something most people never realize. Your biggest financial decision isn't where you live, it's where your capital works, and that changes the conversation completely. 4. Why smart people still buy houses they can't afford. Here's something that surprised me when I first started studying wealth. Most people don't buy the house they can comfortably afford. They buy the house they think successful people are supposed to own. Think about the last time someone announced they bought a home. What was the first question people asked? How many bedrooms? How big is it? What neighborhood? Very few people ask, how much are you investing each month? Or, how close are you to financial freedom? That's because society celebrates visible wealth far more than invisible wealth. A beautiful house gets compliments. A 7-figure investment portfolio usually stays hidden. So people naturally chase what gets noticed, not what quietly builds freedom. Psychologists call this social proof. When enough people believe something is the right choice, we begin to follow it without questioning whether it fits our own goals. That's why someone earning $120,000 often feels pressure to buy a larger home after getting promoted. Not because they suddenly need more space, but because they believe their new income should come with a new lifestyle. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the biggest reasons high-income professionals stay financially stressed. Every raise becomes permission to spend more: a bigger house, a nicer neighborhood, more expensive furniture, higher utility bills, larger insurance payments, more maintenance, more responsibility. The paycheck grows, but so do the obligations. From the outside, it looks like success. On the inside, it often feels like running faster just to stay in the same place. Here's the irony: the people who look the wealthiest are often the people under the most financial pressure. Because appearances don't pay the mortgage, cash flow does. 5. The freedom premium. Now I want to introduce a concept that almost nobody talks about. I call it the freedom premium. Imagine your manager walks into your office tomorrow morning. They announce major layoffs. Would you panic, or would you calmly update your resume? Your answer has very little to do with your salary. It has everything to do with your financial flexibility. Someone whose housing costs consume half of their monthly income has very little room to breathe. Every unexpected expense feels like an emergency. Every career decision becomes risky. Leaving a toxic workplace suddenly feels impossible. Starting a business becomes something they'll do someday. Now imagine someone whose rent is affordable, who invests consistently, who has a healthy emergency fund, and whose monthly expenses stay well below their income. They have options. They can negotiate, take a career break, relocate for a better opportunity, walk away from a bad boss, or start the business they've dreamed about for years. That's the freedom premium. It isn't something you buy, it's something you build. Every dollar you don't lock into unnecessary housing costs has the potential to purchase future choices instead. And when you begin measuring wealth by the number of choices you have, instead of the size of the house you own, everything changes. If this video is changing the way you think about money, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Every week, we break down the financial advice everyone repeats. Then we show you the numbers, psychology, and strategies that most people never learn, but absolutely should. Now let's answer the biggest question of all. If renting can create so much flexibility, when does buying actually become the smarter financial move? Because the answer might surprise you. 6. The day buying a house finally makes sense. After everything we've discussed, you might think I'm against home ownership. I'm not. In fact, I believe buying a home can be one of the best financial decisions you'll ever make, but only when you're buying it for the right reason. Not because your coworkers did. Not because social media tells you it's the next step. Not because you're tired of hearing that renting is throwing money away. Buy because it fits your life. Here's a simple test. Imagine the housing market stopped going up tomorrow. No appreciation, no price increases, no headlines about home values reaching new highs. Would you still want to live in that house for the next 10 years? If the answer is yes, then you're probably buying a home. If the answer is no, then you're probably buying an investment you hope someone else will pay more for later. Those are two completely different decisions. The happiest homeowners don't wake up every morning wondering what Zillow says their house is worth. They wake up happy because they're living exactly where they want to be. That's lifestyle value, not investment value. And confusing those two ideas is where so many financial mistakes begin. A home can absolutely be part of a strong financial plan. It just shouldn't become your entire financial plan, because your house can't retire you. Your investments can. 7. The wealth blueprint most people never build. So, what does the smartest path actually look like? Let's keep it simple. Step 1, protect your cash flow. Whether you rent or own, never let your housing costs control your life. If your monthly payment leaves you unable to invest, the house is too expensive. Freedom always starts with margin. Step 2, own assets before upgrading your lifestyle. Every raise shouldn't buy a bigger house, it should buy a bigger portfolio. Imagine receiving a $15,000 raise. Most people immediately ask, what kind of house can I afford now? Wealth builders ask a different question. How many more shares of productive assets can I own? That one question changes your future. Because assets create income, liabilities consume income. The wealthy understand the difference. Step 3, buy a house because you've already built wealth, not because you're hoping the house will build it for you. Think about that. If you've built strong investments, have a healthy emergency fund, no high interest debt, and your housing payment still leaves room to invest every month, then congratulations, you've earned the house. The house didn't make you wealthy, your financial discipline did. That's the order most people accidentally reverse. 8. The real difference between the two women. Let's go back to the two women we met at the beginning. 20 years later, the homeowner owns a beautiful house. She loves it. She raised her family there. She built wonderful memories. There is tremendous value in that. But financially, most of her wealth is tied to one address. The renter made a different choice. She invested consistently, kept her housing costs predictable, bought productive assets year after year. Today, those investments generate enough income to pay her rent without requiring a paycheck. That's the moment everything changes. She isn't financially free because she rented forever. She's financially free because she understood the difference between consuming an asset and owning assets that produce income. That's the lesson. This has never been about renting versus buying. It's about asking one question before every major financial decision. Will this purchase give me more freedom or more obligations? Because wealth isn't measured by the size of your house. It's measured by the number of choices your money gives you. The people who become financially independent don't spend their lives trying to look wealthy. They spend their lives quietly buying assets that make them wealthy. One day, those assets begin working harder than they do. And that's when money stops being something you chase and starts becoming something that works for you. If this video challenged the way you've always thought about home ownership, tell me in the comments. Would you rather own a $1 million house or a $1 million investment portfolio? There's no wrong answer. I'd genuinely love to hear your thinking. And if you want more videos that break down the financial rules most people never question, but absolutely should, subscribe and join us every week. Because real wealth isn't about owning the biggest house on the block. It's about owning enough freedom to choose how you spend your life. I'll see you in the next one.